So welcome back to part two of our interview with the legendary Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. And we're going to pick up on the theme of sleep deprivation and the effects that it has on us, both as officers and as society, when we start working too many hours. So back to you, Dave.
You know, what we were talking about is kind of the basics and going back to the basics. Contact cover. These are basic dynamics that, Patton said, one holds him by the nose, the other one kicks him in the tail. It's an old concept, back to Sun Tzu, contact cover, where the fundamentals don't change. Pistol shooting is my hobby, it's my sport, I'm good. But you gotta keep training, you gotta keep preparing. And the fundamentals are the key. I'll give you an example before we move into sleep. Now, it was May of 2015, Draw the Prophet Muhammad Art Festival outside Dallas, Texas. In the eyes of Islam, to draw the Prophet is a terrible crime. It was their right to do it. They're afraid to draw bad guys, and it did. Two art critics from Arizona showed up with AK-47s and body armor. The FBI says this is the first ISIS-directed attack on American soil. These two idiots came up with a net, said, we want to do something for the cause. And they said, go to this place, murder the people at the Draw the Prophet Muhammad Art Festival. It could have been the Pulse nightclub times two. Two of them, body armor, rifle, rolled out of the vehicle. And a 59-year-old traffic cop with a pistol killed them both. Wow. One of the greatest feats of marksmanship and courage in American history. Over 30 rounds of rifle fired Officer Greg Stevens, didn't hit once. He's hitting virtually every shot fired from 40 feet away. Officer Greg Stevens had never fired his weapon once at a life and death event. He wasn't a SWAT dog, he wasn't a competitive shooter, but his department had an open range once a month. And for 37 years, once a month, Officer Greg Stevens was at the range. How much golfing could he have done one Saturday a month for 37 years? How much time could he have spent with his family? Sometimes the greatest love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. That take your own time and your own resources to prepare for your moment of truth. And for 37 years, once a month, Officer Greg Stevens made a deposit in his savings account. In May of 2015, it made a major withdrawal. How's your account look? Are you pissing your time away? Are you pissing your money away? Are you preparing for your moment of truth? But again, it's about coming back to the basics. And the most critical basic of all is your body. Sufficient food, sufficient sleep. Now, if you're sleep deprived and the bad stuff comes out, you're far more likely to get PTSD. I call PTSD the gift that keeps on giving, kind of like herpes, right? Don't cop a pity party. The vast majority do not get PTSD. Those who do are very good at recovering from it. But understand that if you're malnourished and somebody attacks you, those stressors can amplify each other. That's why the POWs and the Holocaust survivors can have it so bad. The malnutrition combined with their captors did to them, these stressors amplify each other. If you're injured or ill and somebody attacks you, those stressors amplify each other. That's why the elderly can be so vulnerable. The physical infirmity of the elderly body combined with a traumatic event can make it harder for them. In the same way, if you're sleep deprived and the bad stuff comes down, you're far more likely to bring home the gift that keeps on giving. And we are in the middle of a worldwide epidemic of sleep deprivation. And if your body isn't healthy, everything goes downhill from that point on. Now, most of you are getting pretty good nutrition out there. Most of you, aren't severely ill or injured. Entirely too many of us are sleep deprived. Now, here's the key concept. You got to hang on to two critical dynamics. Number one, sleep is a biological blind spot. Our bodies don't know how to make us get enough sleep because it'll always happen naturally. Throughout human history, every day, without fail, it got dark. For untold thousands of years. And there was nothing to do. It was dark. Had a little sex, a little talking, you went to sleep. And then Tommy Edison invented the light bulb and the television, the video game. Suddenly we have to go 24/7 and our bodies don't know how to make us get enough sleep. There's nothing macho, there's nothing tough, there's nothing impressive about going without sleep. Any 10-year-old girl in a slumber party can do it. The professional thing is to manage your sleep. I'm a huge fan of the fitness tracker. Those fitness trackers that track your sleep and your cycles of sleep, they will rock your world. And if I could give every security specialist one gift, I'd give them the state-of-the-art fitness tracker. I think the Fitbit Charge 3 might be doing the best job. It'll track your heart rate throughout the day, critical information, your steps, your calories, and your sleep and your stages of sleep. Think for a minute how good the body is at getting the right amount of food. How much extra food would a kid have to eat? Put on 1 extra pound a month. If a kid puts on 1 extra pound a month, by the time he's 10, he's 120 pounds overweight. So as we get older, it gets harder. The body's pretty good at getting air, food, water. We're incompetent at getting sleep. It's biological blind spot. Second critical dynamic. Sleep deprivation creates impaired judgment. Sleep deprived people will do stupid stuff. They will say things and do things they will regret for the rest of their life. After 18 hours without sleep, your impaired judgment equal to 0.08 legally drunk. 24 hours without sleep, your impaired judgment equal to 0.10 above legally drunk. After 2 nights without sleep, you are psychotic. Any graduate of Army Ranger School will tell about hallucinations on the 3rd day without sleep. And we're in the middle of this epidemic of sleep deprivation. People play video games all night long. The president of Netflix said our competitor is not other providers. Our competitor is sleep. The president of the online provider says we're here to steal your sleep. We're here to make you stay awake all night long. The addictive video games that put you in a flow state where you can't keep track of time. And these binge watching TV and text messages in the middle of the night. People who text you in the middle of the night without a darn good reason are not your friends. So we got people who will be up all night long. They go to work and they're barely staying awake. Then they're up all night long and now they're on the 3rd day without sleep. And I will tell you from personal experience, you will see things and hear things that are not there on your 3rd day without sleep. So understand then that this sleep is a biological blind spot, and the number one thing it does is impaired judgment. Now, suicide and alcohol have always been closely related. Alcohol creates impaired judgment, you make a bad decision. Suicide, never get a chance to reconsider it. But the most pervasive form of impaired judgment is sleep deprivation. Worldwide, suicides have exploded. Teen suicides have become one of the major killers of our kids worldwide. Teenagers, call them teenagers, 10, 11, 12-year-old. Teenage girls' suicide rate per capita has tripled in America in just the last decade. A worldwide epidemic of suicides. The number one killer of our cops is suicides in America. Far and away, more cops died by suicide than in criminal attacks and traffic deaths together. Suicide is a major killer of our kids. And here's parenting 101 for the 21st century. When you send your kid to bed at night, take their cell phone away from them. No laptop in the room, no cell phone in the room. They have got to go to the room and sleep. A cop came up to me during the break in one of our presentations. He said I had a good girl. She was an A student. She said, Dad, it's embarrassing. You don't have to take my cell phone every night. You can trust me. He said, so I trust her to let her keep her cell phone. A little while later, she took her life. He said, my little girl took her life. And we never knew the hell she was living in until we looked at the text messages on her cell phone. Night after night of ceaseless, relentless, vicious bullying. Coming over that cell phone every night. And you can't just ignore that stuff. We're not wired that way. She's up all night long trying to defend herself, trying to find somebody who will stand up to her. He said, I knew my little girl was bullied to death. What I didn't understand until now, she was sleep deprived, tormented and tortured to death in front of my eyes, and I let it happen. He said, I can't ignore that text message in the middle of the night. How can we expect our kids to? I cannot emphasize this enough. The number one killer of our kids worldwide, the number one killer of our cops, is suicide. It's exploded everywhere. Now, The number also killing our kids and our cops is traffic deaths. The number two killer of kids and cops is traffic deaths. Decade after decade, we brought traffic deaths down, airbags, seatbelts. And in recent years, worldwide, traffic deaths are back up again. What's new? The medical technology is still saving lives. The airbags get better. The seatbelts get better. What's new? This worldwide epidemic of sleep deprivation is causing a worldwide increase in traffic deaths. The third major killer that has exploded worldwide: suicide, traffic deaths, and drug overdoses. Just taking drugs is impaired judgment right there. Making life and death drug dose decisions while you're sleep deprived is a suicide pact. But the opiate epidemic, worldwide opiate epidemic. Of all the drugs out there, why are opiates a drug of choice? And prescription opiates have always been there. Why do people need them? Because sleep deprivation creates chronic pain. The tendons and muscles never get a chance to fully relax. And sleep deprivation creates chronic pain. Doc, I heard all the time, give me a pill to fix. You don't need a pill, you need more sleep. And you need to knock off the caffeine shortly after lunch. It's stopping you from getting deep cycle sleep. I cannot emphasize this enough. Sleep deprivation creates chronic pain, and chronic pain makes it hard to sleep, and that creates more pain, and that makes it harder to sleep. This cycle of pain and sleep deprivation, you break the cycle by sleeping and catching up on sleep and getting good quality sleep. So, two major dynamics on sleep. Number one, you've got to sleep in a totally dark room. Black out that room completely and combine it with the sleep mask. Now, unless you go to heroic levels during the day, you cannot make a room completely dark. You combine it with a sleep mask. In the U.S. military, we issue the sleep mask out to the troops by the fistful. It looked like Lone Ranger without the eye holes. In the military, we're issuing those to our troops everywhere by the fistful. The one thing you can do right now to rock your world is to sleep in a totally dark room. I'm a huge science geek. My favorite website is sciencedaily.com. Major study in the sleep lab. That totally dark room, the bathroom light is on and the door is shut. The light coming under the crack of the bathroom door is enough light to stop your body from producing the melatonin that you need. We got to sleep in a totally dark room. Make it dark as you can, combine it with the sleep mask. And start doing that tonight, and you will rock your world. And teach your children to sleep in the dark. Babies are sloshing with melatonin. Babies can sleep anywhere. As we get older and older, the body produces less and less melatonin. By the time we become teenagers, it's very important that we get a good night's sleep in a dark room. You know, I had 3 teenage boys. Now I got teenage grandchildren. But at that point in time, 3 teenage boys, and the number one killer of our kids were traffic accidents. And I was scared sick. The number one killer of my kids, statistically, was traffic deaths. I made sure they all had airbags. 2 out of 3 tested them. Nobody told me the best thing I could have given my kids was a good night's sleep in a truly dark room. And you got kids now staying up all night long, and then they sleep, when? During the day when the light is out, and they got bad quality sleep. Teach your children to sleep in a totally dark room, and you sleep in a totally dark room, and cut off your caffeine shortly after lunch. That caffeine has a half-life of about 5 hours. That means that caffeine you took at 5 p.m. is at half strength when you go to bed at 10 p.m. And it stops us from getting that deep cycle sleep. That caffeine is causing your chronic pain. You never get good quality sleep. The tendons and muscles never fully relax. And by the way, that lack of deep cycle sleep is one of the greatest predictors of Alzheimer's and dementia. Alzheimer's, dementia should scare the hell out of us. And sleep deprivation appears to be one of the major factors. A study last year said lack of deep cycle sleep may be the single greatest predictor of Alzheimer's. And caffeine stops you from getting deep cycle sleep. So cut off your caffeine shortly after lunch. Sleep in a totally dark room and start managing your sleep. And you will rock your world and protect your children. 2 major killers of our kids have exploded: suicide and traffic deaths, and now drug overdoses. It's true for our cops, it's true for our citizens, and it's true for our kids. And you can save your child's life. You can save your life starting tonight by getting enough sleep, by tracking your sleep, by getting quality sleep, by sleeping in a totally dark room and cut off caffeine shortly after lunch, and it will begin to rock your world. This is the most critical thing we can do right now for our children and for us. But understand those video games are designed to be addictive. Right now, 200 million people online playing video games. Every one of them is being tracked by computer-driven algorithms. We do this and 0.05% say, oh, good time to quit the game, so they never do that again. We do this, absolutely nobody quits a game. And so they keep doing that. It's like us old timers remember Tetris. You all remember Tetris out there. Think Tetris on steroids with crack. And each generation of video games becomes more addictive and more immersive. So if a security specialist, if a cop plays video games all night long, comes to work sleep deprived, and showing up at work drunk. If somebody came to work drunk, you kick his ass. He comes to work sleep deprived because he played video games or social media all night long. He needs his ass kicked. It is not cute. It is not funny. It is not acceptable to show up to work drunk. It's not cute. It's not acceptable to show up work sleep deprived because you played stinking games or on social media all night. I got a text message from you at 2 o'clock in the morning. You should have been asleep. You can't keep doing it that way. We will fire you if you don't get enough sleep. It's like showing up work drunk. It's unacceptable. And here's what I tell all my troops. I got the military by the hundreds and thousands. I got the cops by the hundreds, sometimes thousands. I tell them there's nothing wrong with an adult playing any video game. But realize you go into flow state. Suddenly it's 3 o'clock in the morning, got no idea what the last 6 hours went. And your spouse is sincerely ticked off. Research says in America, at least 15% of all divorces, video games are the cause. 15% of all divorces, video games are the cause. The spouse says, what's more important, that game or your family? Ha! Easy question, the game, divorce. So here's the deal. There's nothing wrong with playing a game for an hour or two. Block out an hour, set a timer, ding, the timer goes off. Use your steely discipline, save the game and move on. People say, oh, I play a major, massive, metamorphic online orgasmic game. You can't do a thing an hour a night. Okay. Decide now what's important. Is your family important? Is your oath of marriage important? Is your oath as a peace officer important? Is your community important? Is your health important? Or is that game important? Decide now. That game is what's really important. It's cool. Quit your job right now. Move into your parents' basement. Draw unemployment. Buy a giant economy-sized bag of Cheetos. Play video games all night long. Millions of people are doing that. But you want to have a life. You want to have a job. You want to uphold your responsibility as a citizen, as a father, as a spouse, as a police officer, a security officer. You got to get those games under control. And I tell you, John, I will say that to an audience of 100 cops, 100 military, and half of them look at me like a deer in the headlight. Say, man, you're talking to me. That's cool. It's what we call a social blind spot. Nobody ever told you that. Now you know it, and you know damn well I'm right. You cannot deny it. You cannot show up to work sleep deprived. If the body's not healthy, if the body's not well, everything goes downhill from there. And we're in the middle of this civilization-wide epidemic of sleep deprivation. And one other little thing on sleep deprivation, there's nothing wrong with the nightcap. One drink on the way to bed. But wear your fitness tracker, wear your sleep tracker, pound down 3 beers and go to bed. Watch what it does. You'll fall quickly into a shallow sleep. You'll wake up in an hour or two and can't get back to sleep. Alcohol is not our friend. There's nothing wrong with some drinks. Nothing wrong with one drink on the way to bed. Any more than one drink on the way to bed, and you're having bad quality sleep. And one last thing. Don't touch the snooze alarm. The thing to understand is the minimum nap is 30 minutes. A 30-minute nap is minimum. And that doesn't mean a 30-minute nap's a good nap. It's a minimum nap. Okay, driving around your head is Bob and take those little micro naps. We've all been there, right? The little micro naps. Pull over. Take a 10-minute nap. The alarm goes off, kind of a startle response. As far as sleep deprivation goes, that 10-minute nap was a total waste of time. And think about this. Now, there's great research on this. There's powerful research that tells us the snooze alarm is doing physical, biological harm to your body. It's like you're trying to force your body to take 10-minute naps, to fall back in a deep sexual sleep in 10 minutes, and it can't do it. You're actually doing harm to your body. The snooze alarm, and maybe most important of all, willpower, grit, determination. Are you in charge of your body, or is your body in charge of you?
Yeah, there's so much there that I'm laughing and kind of at myself, I guess, because I identify with so much that you're talking about. And it's certainly interesting because many years ago I had a video game console and I would limit myself or try my best to limit myself, and then I got rid of it. I didn't want it, and all of a sudden I found myself, I was freed up to do the reading, freed up to do the social interaction, freed up to engage with people, rather than kind of almost lock myself away from society. It's just quite an interesting concept to go through. Now, you mentioned the fitness trackers and being able to manage your sleep. Kind of begs the question from my perspective, how much sleep do you need, especially when you hear people say, oh, I get four hours of sleep at night, and I've been doing it for 20 years, and some CEO who's famous gets up at 5 every morning, goes to bed at 2 in the morning. How much do we really need? Understanding, like you were saying, the babies can sleep, anywhere. Yeah. But as we get older, it gets harder to fall asleep. So how do we track and how do we manage ourselves as we get older?
We take this CEO who says he only sleeps 4 hours a day, and we put him in the sleep lab in the timeless environment, and he immediately starts sleeping 10, 12 hours a day until he catches up on his sleep debt. And Mr. All ever need is 4 hours of sleep. If they get a disease, if they get a physical blow, they collapse. Mr. All ever need is 4 hours of sleep is living in a hollow body. They're a hollow shell of a human being. They have no reserves. Where they get an illness, they get an attack, they get in a traffic accident, they're shattered. They got no reserves. We know this. We'll show it to you over and over again. Minimum sleep for an adult is pretty much about 7 hours. The fitness tracker will tell you. It will say, you've gotten 4 hours of sleep for the last month. You can't keep doing this. As an adult, you need about 7 hours of sleep minimum. And so we got to work on that. And this idea that we can get by without sleep is wrong. Now, I'm an Army Ranger. In Ranger School, we went days without sleep and days without food. So there's two components going on here. One is psychological. If I have to go without sleep, the little monkey brain won't panic because we've been here before. But physically, I cannot train my body to get by on less sleep. And I can't train my body to get by on less food. Going without food for days didn't mean I don't have food. It meant having food in my pocket somewhere. It made me realize what a useless zombie I was that didn't have food or sleep. So psychologically, in a training environment, we can stress people by sleep depriving. In a life and death event where lives are on the line, it's a criminal act to put sleep deprived people in life and death events. I trained the United States Marine Corps on the steady bases and all their major training bases. And they sleep deprive their Marines in basic training. But if they're going to be in the range the next day, they must have a good night's sleep the night before the range. So this is a dynamic that is part of training. We can sleep deprive people. When lives are on the line, we cannot do that. We've got to manage that. It's one area as managers, as leaders. And the single most destructive thing we're doing is rotating shifts. Rotating shifts takes years off people's lives. It destroys families. The research is there. Families can handle day shift. Families can handle night shift. They cannot handle rotating shifts. I tell all my cops, all of my citizens, if you're rotating shifts, start saving money now. You're going to be sued, and you're going to be successfully sued. Yeah. You are destroying their lives. You're taking years off their life. You're destroying their family, and you're giving everybody jet lag. There is nothing you could possibly do to create a gap in the performance, to reduce the performance of everybody, like rotating shifts. We have got to get as much stability in the shifts as possible. Now, the law enforcement community, here we come back to the basics. You know, the old timers knew what to do. 8-hour shift, 10s are doable, 12s are a disaster. Any major department goes 12-hour shifts. Accidents explode, internal affairs investigations, complaints explode. California Highway Patrol, 10,000 people went 12-hour shifts. A year later, they dropped it like a hot rock. Accidents, internal affairs investigations, at the end of 12 hours, people are exhausted. The data's there. 10-hour shifts are doable. 12s are a disaster. And bid for your shift based on seniority. You want to stay on night shifts? Good for you. Stay on nights. You want to move to days? You've earned it. You've got the seniority. You can move to days. So bid for your shift based on seniority. Create as much stability in your shift as humanly possible. The harm that we're doing with rotating shifts is insane. And they want to be like firefighters, work 12-hour shifts, get all that time off. Well, firefighters get to sleep on the job. Only firefighters and prostitutes make money in bed, and you ain't no firefighter, baby. Yeah. So we can, managerial-wise, right now, as leaders, stop this rotating shifts. Stop 12-hour shifts. 10s are doable. Put a hard cap on it, and create as much stability as humanly possible in the shift work. Now, most of you are listening right now. A lot of you can't control your shifts. You can't control other things, but you can control getting enough sleep. You can control not hitting that snooze alarm. You can control sleeping in a totally dark room. You can do that starting tonight. And the old snooze alarm, Muhammad Ali, a boxer, a great champion, Muhammad Ali said championship began every day the alarm went off. He hated running so bad, he put his running shoes on top of the alarm. He went to hit the alarm, he grabbed his running shoes. That's champion willpower. You know, give a kid a marshmallow. Say, you need this marshmallow right now, but I'll be back in 3 minutes with another one. If you don't need it, you have them both. That is the single greatest predictor of success in life. More than IQ, more than anything else, is self-control. And so it starts tonight when that alarm goes off. Tomorrow morning, get the hell out of bed. I tell people, set your cell phone for 10 alarms. 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock. By the time you turn all those alarms off, you're awake. And the you that goes to bed at night, they got to make you get up in the morning, get the hell out of bed. And so it begins with that alarm goes off. Are you in charge of your body, or is your body in charge of you? Those of us who've been in the military, it's a little easier. Because when the drill sergeant came in and said, get up, we got the hell out of bed. Because the drill sergeant would dump your bed over. And we learned, get the hell out of bed when the drill sergeant tells us to. It's a life skill that the military teaches, but everybody needs. And the things you can start doing right now. You know what? I work with the people working on emotional quotient, EQ, and emotional intelligence. And we're working at the national level with this idea of emotional intelligence. It's really a neat field. It's terribly important. And we say EQ begins with the basics. You take a shower most days. Oh, yeah. You put on clean clothes most days. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And what about sleep? Are you sleeping every night? Oh, sleep when you're dead. You have not got EQ. You have failed. The baseline measure of your basic emotional intelligence. Getting enough sleep is one of the baseline dynamics of your emotional intelligence and your performance and everything you do. And in a life and death job like this, it is the most important thing we can start doing now to improve your family, to improve your way of life. Start getting enough sleep, manage your life, and make these things happen. Begin to rock your world right now.
So we're going to take a view with another pause, and stay tuned till we come back, and Colonel Grossman and I will start talking about what your body does under stress. So we'll be back in a moment.